keeping a gas tank at least half full or more at all times is a good idea. And this is something that you hear a lot from preppers. Hey, don't let your gas tank in your vehicle get too low. Because in an emergency, you want to have that reserve capability to get away from threats and to get to a safe location. Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining me with the podcast. In this particular episode, we're talking about how long, if you had to, could you shelter in place in your vehicle? So instead of being mobile and trying to egress through the means via your vehicle, if you had a shelter in place, just pull over and park your vehicle, how long could you actually use that vehicle before it would run out of fuel? So the question more specifically is, how long can you idle your vehicle on a full tank of gas? And you may not actually have a full tank of gas, but if you did, what would be the limitations? How far could you push it if you were able to top off? How much can you get out of that tank? And this has a lot of implications, because if you had a shelter in place, you may have to use the vehicle to stay warm or to stay cool. It could be to gather information via listening to the radio, or to be maybe charging devices through the power ports and using your vehicle as a power supply. You may want to charge your cell phone or whatever else you have. It's very important in some ways to know this extent, because even though you may only use your vehicle, let's say 5 minutes an hour, 10 minutes an hour, maybe a lot less. But it's good to know how you could ration the supply of fuel in your vehicle. Now, I did kind of a quick lookup of this, and it really does vary depending on your vehicle type of how long you can idle it. Continuously, I saw some cars that were as low as maybe a day that you could idle your car on a full tank of gas. And I found other vehicles that could go 2.5 to 3.5 days. Some vehicles have a lot larger or even extended fuel tanks. And then there's others that have, extra fuel tanks that you can switch over, like a dual fuel tanks. Some vans and trucks have that. And it's pretty interesting, because you could actually go several weeks, quite possibly, on one tank of gas if you were able to be very careful in its use. If you were able to ration the fuel. And so if you only use it to just keep yourself from getting hypothermia, and just to try to top off your cell phone, or to receive emergency communications over the radio, you could probably go for quite a while. And I think this is good to know. This is good to know, just like it's good to know what is the range of your vehicle. In ideal situations, not looking at maybe every variable, such as elevation and temperature, but just a broad stroke of how many miles per gallon you get in your vehicle. Maybe give yourself a range of that. It's also good to give yourself a range of how long you could idle and how long you could ration under an average situation, under average conditions, if you will. And I think this is something that we can look into further, but only you can really get the answer for you, because you know what kind of vehicle you have. This can be kind of simple to some degree. If you have a digital fuel gauge or a heads-up display in your vehicle, you could just let your car idle until you have 1 or 2% drop right after you top off your tank. And then you can actually, from there, estimate how long you could idle. And it may not give you exact numbers, but you'll have a good ballpark to work from. And so From what I can see, a lot of vehicles can idle for a very long time. And especially if you're just doing a lot of short burst of 5, 10 minutes here, um, I think it could last a long time. In fact, I think that you would start to have more issues with just trying to find water and food and those kind of issues more so than worrying about the vehicle itself, of staying hot or cold. And um, so I think that, that's the next step is after you figure out how long you can idle in your vehicle on a full tank of gas to make sure that you have the provisions in the vehicle so that you could actually last that time span, that you could actually weather that period of time. So if you think that you could ration that over maybe 2 weeks, even though this sounds kind of excessive, do you have 2 weeks of provisions to shelter in place in your vehicle? That for a lot of people might just be over the top, and you may be laughing about that by now. But a lot of people have been in situations, especially in the wintertime, of being stranded on the highways or in a blizzard and being out there for more than a week. And you can guarantee that they would have wished that they would have brought more with them, not just in clothing and ways to stay warm, but food and water. And so this is somewhat serious. At the time of filming here, it's still summer, so it's kind of hard to kind of think about winter. But, if you're out traveling and you're in a desert-like environment and you break down, heat stroke is possibly not that far away. So having at least plenty of water is going to be extremely important in those situations. So it just depends on what time of the year, what are the threats. But in the end, though, it's good to know how long your vehicle can idle. And it's good to know how long you can actually last on the provisions in your vehicle. So let me know what you think about this in the comment section. As always, thanks for your support.